Oh, well, hello, fellow travelers. Since you're here, how about we talk a little about education and how it looks like during the times of COVID-19? This is State of Emergency, Day 18, Pärnu, Estonia. It's the 30th of March, it's a Monday, and I'm here in Pärnu, which is not really the capital of education, that would be Tartu in Estonia, but it's more like the capital of summer, or the summer capital. Usually, well, in the summertime, this beach would be completely full. It's one of the most popular beaches in the whole country. But right now in the winter, it's actually fairly quiet here. And as you can imagine, even more quiet during these days. Pärnu is also on the E67 European route, which is the Via Baltica, and it's about halfway between Tallinn and Riga, the capital of Latvia. And if you keep on going, then you get through the Baltics to Poland and then onwards to Prague in Czechia. So a lot of truck traffic goes through the E67, a lot of the cargo goes around Pärnu, and if you can recall, then it wasn't too long time ago when the whole Polish situation made international traffic, well, quite complicated. But now it looks like, as far as international cargo goes, things are pretty okay. Pärnu also has a regionally important college under Tartu University, which mostly focuses on specialities like tourism and the hotel industry. Well, we know that both tourism and hotel industry are in quite dire straits these days, so it seemed even more fitting to take a short drive and end up on, once again, the coast. Pärnu is also just, a really nice place, so besides the college, there's a number of basic and high schools, as well as the Pärnu Vocational Education Center, which has specialities for welders, electricians, IT engineers, construction workers, and, well, forest managers. Pärnu has a population of about 40,000 people, which makes it the fourth most populous city in Estonia. So yes, 40,000 in a city is a big thing here. It's about 130 kilometers south from Tallinn, or about 1 hour and 45 minutes if you're taking the car, or the bus for thereof, since they're still running between Tallinn and Pärnu, mostly. There's a number of spas and hotels and restaurants that actually have their focus of the business on the summer season. In the winter it's fairly quiet, or early spring, like today when it's 0 degrees outside and actually was snowing a bit before. So we're walking around town to see if we can find a place that was still open to grab a quick bite, and it looks like one of the only places that was open was the legendary pizza restaurant called Stefani. It would seem that Stefani will be open even if the actual apocalypse should arrive one day. It did feel somewhat irresponsible to be in a restaurant these days, like we were doing something almost rebellious, but we were extra careful to wash our hands, and the nearest other customers were on the other side of the room. I think there was a total of 3 tables that were being waited. But people are coming and going constantly, picking up their deliveries. Good times for delivery businesses. Also, Stefani had Queen playing on their audio system, so that seemed like a sort of reassuring signal, I guess. The county itself, called Pärnu County, has about 85,000 people living here, and the current number in Pärnu County as far as confirmed COVID-19 cases go stands at 42 as I'm recording this. Which means 4.89 cases per 10,000 capita, and if you compare it to Harju County, for example, where Tallinn is, then Harju County has that number at 3.98 cases per 10,000 capita. But I'm not here only to chill on the beach. I actually meant to talk a bit about education, because we're actually quite proud about education here in Estonia. We're very proud about our PISA test results. We can brag that we're the first in Europe. At the same time, the educational system these days has had to completely reorganize itself and face the challenges: are we actually as adaptable and innovative as we present ourselves to be? But the debate how to remodel our education system has been going on for some time now. And the question how to, for example, bring the same level of digital knowledge to the older generation of teacher compared to the younger ones remains unsolved. I'll be doing a Skype interview with one of my friends later on, who actually is a teacher himself, so he can give us some first-hand knowledge. So school's out. School's out, kids. School's out not for summer, not for the whole spring, or, it might end up being... Originally, school was supposed to be out for 2 weeks. Now that was extended by another 2 weeks, and it seems like that will remain the case until the end of April. At least that was the warning given to us by Mailis Reps, our Minister for Education and Research. The main platform that's also used in regular times is called eSchool. I mean, the main platform for homeworks and grades and so on. So on the first days of this whole homeschooling system that's been going on for the last few weeks, eSchool went down because traffic went way up. While, that's a very common problem to have and it was solved quickly, it still shows that the system has its limits. And now we have to figure out how to expand ourselves within these limits. And it also just shows that no one was really ready to completely reorganize the whole education system, which by now we've had to do because, homeschooling. But eSchool is not the only platform meant for remote education. There's a number of different service providers, each with their own speciality, whether it's virtual classrooms or teaching materials, etc. But understandably, the whole build-up of this whole new structure is challenging for, the parents, pupils and the teachers themselves. By now there's no shortage of parents who already feel that they're burned out because besides having to somehow keep their own job going, whether they're doing it at home or not, they also have to make sure that their kids are doing all the home assignments and if you have 2 or 3 kids that all go to school, then it's going to be quite a hassle. Good news is that people are helping out each other, which means that, some families don't really have that many computers to make sure that all their 3 or 4 kids have access. So people are finding ways to secure extra computers for these families. Well, in the beginning, a lot of parents were actually quite enthusiastic about the whole thing, that they can, bond with their kids and also learn themselves. Then by now it's quite common that they just share memes on Facebook how their homes have become basically active war fronts. And of course there's a huge difference between kids who've gone to school for years and who by now already have their own rhythm or at least understanding some kind of what school is, how it should be, what are the assignments that you should be doing. But for kids for whom this is the first year, that must be quite a different experience. But this is not just some extended spring break. So it's a lesson for the pupils how to manage yourself, how to structure your work, and also how to just motivate yourself. There are of course still curriculums and schedules for days and weeks, but it's up to the pupils how they follow it, and also up to the parents. So the pupils get some assignments, some tasks that they have to do, and then they have to send them back to the teachers to assess them, whether by email or, you can just make a picture with your smartphone and then send it to the teacher. Well, if you have a smartphone, of course, which, all kids don't have one, so you really can't take these things as self-evident. While that might seem that it should go without problems, then in reality a lot of parents are feeling like they're in detention themselves because some of the teachers are not satisfied with, the quality of the sent assignments, be it pictures or emails, or you just haven't been following the schedule for, whichever number of reasons in these days. Which all means that there are a number of people in their 30s and 40s who feel like they're going through a weird deja vu trip at the moment, that they're stuck in basic school once again and going through all the same traumas when they were 15. And they also have to run their daily jobs and still somehow keep a functioning household and maintain the relationship inside the family somewhat sane. If you have a partner who's working at home or at least has some sort of regular hours, then you have some support. However, if you belong to the number of people whose partner is on the front line, then your whole situation is somewhat more unnerving. Because also, you're more exposed to the virus and your whole family is in a more vulnerable situation. Because you also can't really count on your grandparents because they belong to the risk group and So while schools are closed, kindergarten or preschool so far remains open. This is mainly due to people who are working on the front lines could have their kids taken care of. So the people working in the kindergarten are somewhat worried because, they don't have enough protective gear, and they also can't enforce the 2+2 rule inside the kindergarten, which means 2 people only in one room and 2 meters apart from each other. We'll see how long the kindergartens will remain open without any changes, but the kindergarten staff has made it clear that something has to change. As far as summer goes, then the ministry is hoping to keep it as normal as possible, meaning also that the teachers would have their vacation in summertime, but so far this remains to be seen. Mailis Reps, the Minister for Education and Research, has made it clear that the crisis committee actually supports more tougher measures as far as limits on movement goes. So, I might not be roaming around for long. While the government is trying to find a way how to keep Tallinn and Harju County open, because that would affect a lot of people commuting from elsewhere, then it's also clear that they can't really exclude that as an option. But new restrictions have already been introduced in Saaremaa. So starting from Sunday, which was yesterday, the only stores that are still allowed to be opened are groceries, pharmacies, telecom offices, bank offices, partial machines, post offices, and also stores that sell medical and aid equipment. Construction stores can only keep the sales going through windows or through their warehouses. Restaurants are closed for indoor services, they can only sell takeaway or delivery food. So no open until the end of the world pizza restaurants in Saaremaa anymore. Also all close contact services like barbers, manicure, pedicure, tattoos, massages are now halted. And libraries are closed in Saaremaa. No. As far as movement goes, then people must stay inside. They can leave home for groceries or to go to the pharmacy or pick up some parcels. Also, they can go for a walk with their family or just do some sports. But they have to carry their ID when they go outside. And if you can't work from home, then of course you're still allowed to commute. And take your kids to the kindergarten and back. Or take your pet for a walk. Or, continue fishing if that's your livelihood. Paneks seda ava ka natukene juurde. Nii. But don't forget your ID when you go out, because otherwise you might get fined. The police will be keeping an eye on the people who are spending time outdoors, and if you don't apply with the rules, then too bad for you. I mean, it's not like they're going to fine you the first time that they see you just walking around with no apparent reason, but if you keep on doing it, then you might get the fine up to 2,000 euros, for example. And Saaremaa is actually quite severely hit. That's why they applied these new restrictions. And we also know that Kuressaare Haigla, which is the hospital, is also looking for, more doctors, more nurses, because they're seriously running out of resources. But let's talk more about the numbers and the situation in Saaremaa a bit later. Right now, let's call my dear friend Jürgen, who's a teacher in one of the leading high schools in Estonia and who's also doing his master's in educational technologies. So, ding ding.
Good morning, Jürgen.
Good morning, Oliver.
Absolute pleasure to talk to you after all these weeks. How are you?
I'm doing good. Trying to figure out how to do the teaching in distance and how to be able to manage with everyday things here in this setting.
So tell me a bit about teaching from distance. How has this worked out for you and your classes these past weeks?
The teaching itself has been, in time-wise, has been quite same. That you spend quite the same amount or even a bit more per day doing schoolwork. But of course, the work you do is very, very different. In distance studies, it's a lot of time goes to managing the communication and assignments and everything like that.
So how does this really work, like on a more specific daily basis, that you hand your students some tasks and then they send them back to you?
Right now it's pretty free form, however a teacher wants to do. For me, I'm focusing more on the study materials and finding good sources online for sharing. So there's no big strategy of going forward. It's kind of in a hiatus right now that we will see week by week, basically. The most important things that they have told us to do, or that is important, is that very little grading at the moment in this stressful situation, and to use contact contact studies in terms of like live class as much as possible. And yeah, that's where the kind of rules or guidelines end.
How about any feedback from the parents, or how has your contact been with the parents of the students?
Kind of similar as with everyone else, that parents are strained as well because they have much more responsibility now. They have responsibility to make sure that their student does everything what is necessary in 1 week, and that can be like a new experience for some parents, I guess. Then very stressful is for parents whose kid got a warm meal in school, and due to home reasons they are maybe not able to do it consistently, and that is a big stress source for a lot of families in Estonia. And besides that, I have had parents who say that they understand it's a stressful time. I have had parents who say that this is outrageous what teachers are doing, and so it's from wall to wall.
Talk a bit about your studies as well. Do you see like any possibilities that if you take your studies that you actually can take the situation as like a lesson or like an opportunity to something?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's for education technology, it's a very, very important time at the moment, because you can see it as a stress test or like a grand experiment for the viability of it. And so far, a lot of education technology companies have noticed it, have understood it, and a lot of study materials that before were we all know, or we like to think that Estonia is very developed in technology sense, and we're very innovative in our IT capabilities and education as well, of course. But at the same time, people who should implement this kind of new methodologies or technologies into the system have been more careful or more reluctant to do it. So this moment right now, this is the moment where we can take a big jump forward with a new technology.
And how would you see the strengths and weaknesses of the Estonian education system?
The strengths are shining right now because we have veteran teachers. The average age of Estonian teachers is quite high, and that means that professional level as well is quite high, and that could be the reason also why last year the PISA tests were very, very good for Estonia. As far as I've seen, all the teachers are very open to trying new things, which is a very positive aspect of it. So I think the strength is that we have a very kind of IT supportive government and system in place, and very high skilled teachers. But in the other sense, it's true what they have said, that in every sense we are always worried about how the kids are exposed to the technology and what effects does it have. And if we look at the current situation, then parents are at work, most of them. The kids are at home, and what do they do? Well, a lot of have hobbies that are tied to their screens. So what happens is that they spend 6-7 hours per day doing schoolwork, and then after that spend the rest of the time doing their hobbies, which can be very tied to their screens. And that is definitely a health issue if a teenager or younger person spends, or whoever actually spends like 8 to 10 hours per day behind a screen.
Maybe you can tell a bit both about the virus itself and the general effect on societies, and whether things seem to be getting better, or what do you think?
What I can recommend first off is that all the scientific articles are usually behind a paywall, but all of them have made anything connected to COVID-19 free. So if you're interested in like a very in-depth analysis of the virus, then feel free to look them up in Google Scholar, for example. It's not the first coronavirus that we're dealing with. So we also see that the countries who had it before, a different coronavirus, are now dealing with it also much, much better. What is interesting is that, or what I'm hopeful for, is that, for example, many years now it's scrapped, this program, but for many years, United States had a task force whose sole reason was to study viruses and collect them from all over the world and study them. And they made massive progress in, I don't fortunately remember how much they worked or how long, but they discovered a lot of new viruses, among them, for example, a new Ebola virus, and also they found a new SARS virus and so on. But this program was cut due to budget reasons, I think, a couple of years ago. So looking back at it now, a lot of you probably have seen articles stating that the reduction of air pollution will save a lot of people, or the reduction of certain factories is gonna clear up the groundwater, and these are all very positive aspects. But of course, it's just a nice thing to read if we don't change anything, and I'm afraid that once this passes, then we will try to make up for the lost time and get even more into our habits and things we have kind of missed, or maybe not. Maybe there's a real shift in terms of that.
Big thank you to Jürgen. It was very nice to talk to you once again. And take care, stay healthy, and I wish you all the strength and vitality for your school lessons as well as your studies.
Thanks a lot, Oliver, and it was a nice call. Good luck with your things.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so that was my good friend Jürgen Ivarsik. Thanks, Jürgen. And just to wrap things up, let's have a quick glance at the numbers from the last few days. So all in all, today's 36 new cases brought the total in Estonia to 715, including a total of 3 deaths by now. At least the percentage of positive tests has remained quite stable. The last 3 days, for example, it's been between 3.78 and 5.23%. At the same time, the numbers of patients who have been hospitalized is increasing. At the moment, the total number of patients in the hospitals is 79, which amounts to 11.42% of current active cases. So the first hospitalized patients started appearing a bit more than 2 weeks ago, and by now their percentage has been steadily increasing. And as far as Saaremaa goes, then the 17 new cases there today brings the total in Saaremaa to 258. This is more than even in Harjumaa, that has 238 cases. And Harjumaa or Harju County includes Tallinn, the capital, where I'm sitting at the moment. Now, on my couch again, not in Pärnu anymore. Koroonakaart.ee shows Harju County and Saaremaa most affected, if you check the total cases, but let's change that to cases per 10,000 capita, and you see why Saaremaa has been cut off. So that is 77.93 cases per 10,000 capita in Saaremaa, and if you compare it to Harju County, then like I mentioned before, here it's only 3.98. And Pärnu County, where we're today, has that number at 4.89. The numbers make it really clear why the new restrictions have been applied in Saaremaa. So that's it for today. That's another Monday for us. And if you were wondering what was the book that I was reading before, then it's, if you've been following the elections for the United States Democratic Party's presidential nominee, then you might have recalled that there have been some comparisons that if Bernie Sanders would get the nomination, it would be George McGovern over again, which was in 1972 when George McGovern ran against Richard Nixon. And Nixon won very big. So if you're curious about what was the whole story with George McGovern, then Hunter S. Thompson does a very good job in bringing that time alive, and you really start to feel some similarities between 1972 and 2020. So 50 years, but how much have we changed or evolved as people and the societies? well, this book might give you some curious insights. So read some books, breathe some fresh air, listen to some music that you enjoy, and just try to relax. And see you again.